Everybody please welcome Boyan and Niki.
Hi guys, this time not storage. I'm from StorPool.
What will you ever talk about?
No. Right, so only like 3 or 4 slides so you know our background, context, and then we'll get into the meat of the matter. StorPool, company based in Sofia, Bulgaria, mostly, like about 50 people, 11 years old, founders owned now, so we used to have external investors but not anymore. Growing quite well, we're kind of pretty happy with where the business is going. Doing a primary storage platform for a number of cloud orchestration systems like OpenStack, CloudStack, OpenNebula, etc. What differentiates it, it's a parallel multi-node architecture. And we shouldn't get into much details, but after the talk, ask me what's the difference between this and something else you know. It's software only, hardware agnostic. It comes with this mindset of always on, non-disruptive, which a lot of other solutions don't. They simply don't have that mindset, and therefore they can't implement that mindset. It's linearly scalable. It's a block solution. It has some file capabilities. It's made for large scale and modern IT. Modern IT are environments where kind of things like dynamic provisioning and self-service are in effect. The ultimate performance and efficiency, and it has a good integration with CloudStack, and we're fairly active in the community. So our work with CloudStack is not just, we wrote a plugin and we published it. It goes a bit further. This is how the solution looks like. So, a number of storage nodes on the bottom, each with SSDs and hard disk drives inside. And we attach KVM hypervisors, and use bare metal servers, VMware hypervisors, and what we're interested here is CloudStack on top of KVM hypervisors, mostly. Our CloudStack integration is only for CloudStack KVM. We don't do anything with CloudStack VMware, CloudStack Zen Server. And here's the kind of the latest on the plugin, and with that I'll close. So it's the plugin has been upstream for about 1 year. It has been like out of tree for a number of years before that, many years before that. And features or things we worked on in the last year or so are storage-based snapshots for KVM, which work for all kinds of primary storage, not just StorPool. We worked on KVM I/O tuning, so things like I/O native, I/O threads in KVM. Then StorPool specific stuff. We are now able to expose multiple storage tiers to CloudStack as separate data stores. Previously, with CloudStack, KVM, and StorPool, you got one data store, and then the different performance tiers were mixed within that, and now we present them as separate data stores. And kind of associated with that, we do volume life migration of StorPool to StorPool different tiers. So you can take a volume that's on SSDs, and you can tell it to go to hard drives, and without stopping the workload, it moves the data between the different volumes. You have this thing called partial zone wide. So especially during retrofit deployment, where there is an existing set of, say, 100 hypervisors, and the new system is only deployed on a small number of these hypervisors, you need something smaller than a zone to control where a particular storage system is available and where it's not available, and that's something we did. We did multiple API endpoints for larger deployments, which have multiple, call them building blocks, that don't have a good networking connectivity between them. We've done some work on kind of snapshots and remote snapshots and backup functionality, somewhat integrated with CloudStack, although not fully exposed through CloudStack yet. So, for example, we don't have a plugin for the backup API, but there is some data management and backup functionality under the hood. And there is a minor, kind of the current feature we're working on is a minor one, which is the kind of report usage and kind of usable space, use space. And then we have some things further down in the roadmap, which we can talk about separately from that. Now, this presentation has two parts, so three parts. One, what is StorPool and what I did just now. Then we're moving to kind of an introduction, what is continuous integration, what is third-party CI in maybe, 15 minutes or so. And then at the end, we have some details of what we think we should do with third-party CI in CloudStack.
Hi. What is continuous integration? I'm pretty sure that all of you know what's continuous integration, but I just need to start from somewhere. So, continuous integration is a software development practice to automate build, deployment, and tests of code and changes. It looks something like this. There is a new code. It goes to the build system, then go to the test system, then go to the deploy system. Of course, at any time, somewhere can occur some error, and the code, the change is returned back to developers. Please fix it, reforge it, so on. So for small or internal project, let's say 100 line of Python code, there is no need CI integration, CI systems. But when the project grows, evolves, and especially like in CloudStack use, there is a third-party plugins and external developers, then the picture becomes more complex. One approach is QA and developers team to have their own CI system on-premise in their own lab. In our case, in StorPool, because our solution is hardware agnostic, we have a pretty large list with supported hardware components, more than 100. Yet, we can combine all this hardware in around 50 physical servers in our lab to test each new version with each hardware part that we need. But is this a good approach for CloudStack? Or third-party vendor CI system will be better? Let's see. Let's say that CloudStack will try to use the same approach as ours to keep everything in their environment. So they need one StorPool cluster, one other storage cluster, one other sound cluster, some application servers, more system switches, so on, a lot of hardware. And each time new vendor became to the community, new hardware. Each time new version of sound is on the market, new hardware. And hardware and hardware and hardware. Besides our work to support this hardware, there is also one question: who pays the bill for the electricity in the data center? So it's important. Alternative approach is each vendor to have its own CI system with his specific tests in its own environment, and when there is a change in code in CloudStack, the CloudStack build system informs our external CI systems. They decide, do they do this test, do they not? Make their tests, respond, hopefully everything is okay, and then code change marked as acceptable. Still, human must decide at the end step, and there is a lot of details here that should be considered, but later we will tell about this. So, and all these tests happens in parallel. There is no one first to test one, the second, the third, the fourth. All these tests can happen in parallel. What could be the benefits, additional benefits of this vendor CI system, vendor-based CI system? First, no more worries from changes. How to say? No more worries that someone somewhere will change something in the code and my plugin stop working. This is a CI system, tests are run, results are visible. Work or don't work. No more suspicions and assumptions. In the past we have seen such thing. Someone proposed a change And few people responded, like, as I see this code, this should maybe broke something somewhere. With automated CI system, there is no need human to read the code and suggest what will happen. The CI system will say if this work or not. And if this is a built system, there is fast communication between vendors. If I see that change in some other vendor broke something in my functionality, I can directly talk to him. Please fix this, or let's say sit and consider what. There is no need to say to CloudStack, please tell to the vendor X to change something. Vendor X say, no, my code is good, let's StorPool fix there, and so on forward. And the good news here is that we see such system already working in other ecosystems. And the proposal, which...
So to summarize, we don't think it's viable to put every system that CloudStack is integrated with in a single place, right? We don't think that works. And alternative is what's called third-party CI or vendor CI. We've seen that approach work in OpenStack. We have a third-party CI system attached to OpenStack, and it works as an approach. And benefits are on both sides. So on one side, the vendor can more easily track upcoming changes in the upstream project, even before they're before the upstream project is released. So instead of waiting for the, say, release candidate and then checking if their stuff works, this feedback is earlier. And on the developer side, there is also benefit of every change they develop, they have early feedback if they broke something at the other end of the things they didn't expect they would break. And in a complex project, it happens all the time. General approach, third party maintains a CI system for CloudStack with their own specifics in terms of, in our case, it would be CloudStack KVM with StorPool in the kind of one or several typical configurations that our customers use. All proposed changes to CloudStack are tested by the vendor. Feedback is provided back in the PR, so it is visible to the developer. Developer benefits from third-party CI because third-party CI gives them test coverage of different use cases and scenarios which they would otherwise wouldn't test. What I think, kind of a step further, I think we need to agree on a common way of connecting all these third-party CI systems, so we don't end up with a different approach with every such system. I think we should have a common set of tests that all third-party CI systems run, which you could call, I would call smoke tests, basic tests, right? And then there might be optional extended tests which are specific to that specific environment. And we think there should be a common way of reporting feedback, providing feedback to the developer, because otherwise you end up in a situation where a developer gets feedback from, say, 3 third-party CI systems, and each one of them has a different way of calling the tests, for example. So they must be unified, otherwise the developer can't use the feedback. A test named something failed, and it doesn't mean anything to the developer. Implementations of the internals of the third-party CI system might be common, or they don't need to be common. It makes some sense for them to be similar, but they don't necessarily need to be similar. We think what's important is the interface, like how that third-party CI system connects to the, how does it provide feedback, etc. The set of tests. And this is what we intend to do. We'll continue maintaining our internal CI system for CloudStack KVM and StorPool for as long as we have a working primary storage driver. This is a system we use internally to develop the driver. If kind of the project allows, we would build a third-party CI system and hook it up to the GitHub project of Apache CloudStack. What we're looking for in this talk and the discussion is an agreement of how to do this in a common way across vendors, so we don't end up with 4 different ways of doing it. We think kind of the interface and workflows are more important than, say, the internals of the CI system in this case. And I've also thought of roadmap or how an evolution of continuous integration in CloudStack would look like. Today we have stage 1, one vendor, Shape Blue with Blue Orangutan, or I'm not aware if there's any other kind of working CI system connected to ACS, maybe not. Second stage, multiple vendors, say out StorPool, that use a common CI workflows, which we need to figure out what these are. And stage 3, making vendor CI mandatory for all vendors. The idea there is that if I'm making a change somewhere in the KVM block, say something in the agent, I need to have some confidence that that will not break SolidFire. I need some confidence that will not break Lean-Store, right? So instead of making the change and then someone from Lean-Store writing an angry email, why did you do that? This is going to break something for me. It hasn't happened, but it's an example scenario, right? We could get that feedback just as a result of a test, right?
So do you mentioned other projects where you already did it?
Yeah.
And do you have more explicit examples? And second part is, can you leverage these contexts for CloudStack?
Yeah. I want to add something very important here. I think it's important for us to take it one step at a time, walk before we run. I'm not proposing that we make third-party CI mandatory today, right? The first step is add one more third-party CI system, which is StorPool. And we need to figure out what's the best way to do that, so we can keep growing after that. Our experience with third-party CI, we have Biser, who will help with that. Biser has worked and built large parts of our OpenStack third-party CI infrastructure. And you were asking, can we take some good examples of what works and what doesn't work from there? Yes, we can. And Biser can share something, I guess. It's different. Sorry, they don't use GitHub. They use something else, but that's just these are details, not that important, I guess.
Yeah, so the idea is to apply the essence of what third-party CI systems do in OpenStack and not the concrete mechanics. The OpenStack project uses Gerrit and Zool. CloudStack is on GitHub. The way we can make this work is, if we want to go into the technical details, we want the guiding principles for the first iteration of this technical proposal is to make it as frictionless as possible for all participants. From the AFS GitHub repository maintainer point of view, this means to use GitHub apps to push events, PR events, to participate in third-party vendor systems. And from the point of view of third-party vendors, to have a standard set of tests or a library of tests which they can quickly set up and get their system running. And from the point of view of developers, to not swamp them down with too much details about each system, third-party vendor CI system. That's why we're proposing at the beginning something basic, smoke tests. Does it work? Can you migrate the VM? Can you create the volume, etc. We can be as flexible as we want, but we suspect that starting small is better, and people will be more willing to participate.
What I mean, I'm sorry that you didn't answer all my questions there, but what I mean, you have experience with this within the OpenStack community,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, are you in contact with any vendors that are also vendor for CloudStack that you can, where you can leverage your cooperation that you have in OpenStack into the CloudStack community?
In terms of convincing the vendors that
In terms of having quick communications about how the technical implementation can be ported towards the GitHub Actions, for instance, if we decide to use GitHub Actions.
I don't know of anyone else interested in doing third-party CI for CloudStack, except for in Czech.
I think there are. You'd be
Are
surprised.
there other people interested in doing third-party CI?
It feels like you might be overthinking this a bit. Let's take the Boyan test as being a trigger. You have a webhook into the CloudStack Git repo,
Yeah.
filter for seeing that particular line,
Yes.
and then fire your CI/CD internally.
Yeah.
You've already got Marvin that has smoke tests and integration tests. You pick whichever ones of those you want to run, and then from your original Git webhook, you know which
Yeah.
thread in the PR it is, and you just
Yes.
pump back whatever.
Exactly. So that's an example of how you can quickly put it together and get it to work.
Yeah.
It's not that complex.
No.
But that gives Boyan the advantage of say he will know when there's a problem there, but you're missing out then on the opportunity to potentially report that back in.
No, because we push the same way as.
Okay. Yeah.
The same
Yeah.
way
You
as,
would say
blue orangutan.
green orangutans
Yes.
failed.
Yeah, because
Yes.
what gets
Green orangutan, exactly.
so the tests. So
It's exactly what we had in mind. I think Biser has like a bit more details on that.
Yeah,
So adding an app to GitHub and in the same way Blue Orangutan is.
yes, why we think GitHub apps is the way to go. A separate app per vendor is I've seen that GitHub is moving to the checks API, and for us to report against the AFS CloudStack repository, we would need
Yes.
GitHub app authentication. I haven't seen it done without having an app installed on the maintainer owner repository.
Feedback we got from I think Rohit, right, is that sounds like the right approach, but it may be hard to add another app there in the Apache CloudStack.
It's almost like you need a proxy.
That
control.
Might be hard just in terms of who has admin rights to this repo and who would agree to adding that app, and then would they take any responsibility for this app breaking 2.5 years down the road?
I think you need to define a workflow in GitHub Actions that has a runner that is defined as running on your machine. And the runner part, how you implement that, I'm not sure, but
I
it's
don't know.
another runner than the standard Ubuntu GitHub hosted virtual machine.
And I don't know who would generate it, but if you have a GitHub token which only has whatever specific rights which obviously doesn't include merge something or whatever else. Then you would just pass that.
So
as you push.
The checks API requires
exactly. So this is exactly the approach we had in mind. We were just told maybe it may be too hard to push through to do that or something. Might not be right. Might be wrong. Right. I don't know.
We thought about of having, so why I think why I thought an app for vendor was a good idea was because it seems straightforward, although you might have a lot of vendors. Maybe in the beginning a lot of administrative noise in the repository. This should stabilize. The second plan B was to have a webhook proxy, so you'd have probably 1 or 2 apps for all of the vendors. This proxy, this multiplexer would then, it would take the GitHub webhook event and push it to many CIs. It seems strange. It seems like using GitHub apps as they were meant to be used, how people are using them at the moment, one app per CI, is more straightforward. But otherwise, you're adding another moving component to the
So, a couple of things I'd like to add. I have no idea if there will be anyone else other than StorPool interested in doing third-party CI for CloudStack. We see the benefit, we've experienced this benefit with other kind of cloud orchestrations, and we want to do this. We'll kind of spend the effort to do our part. Maybe the part we're overthinking is thinking that we'll pollute that space and there will be 10 third-party CI apps there. I don't believe that actually.
It's a theoretical issue,
Yeah,
but is it?
start with one, I guess. The other thing I wanted to mention is one kind of negative experience from OpenStack is that there is a lot of third-party CI which is not well maintained. So they start with the best intentions, and then it stops working and starts kind of returning false feedback. Say 3 of 10 tests failed, and there is no reason for them to fail. It's just because of a bug or disrepair, not good maintenance of the CI system. So kind of a future maintenance task is once something like this stops working, it should be removed so it doesn't pollute the
But that's phase 3, right?
no, even if it's just one, even if say StorPool for some reason doesn't maintain their third-party CI system well,
Yeah, but
1.5
putting
years.
a rule in place for the third-party vendors, that's phase 3.
Yeah.
We're now at phase 2.
Yeah.
That's just adding your GitHub action
Adding one more.
to the repository.
Yes.
And then see how we do the third one.
Yeah.
Because I regard it as the second one. So.
Yes, you're right. It's just something to.
I think the other thing to think about as well, Boyan, is you talk about vendors, third-party vendors. There's probably quite a number of users and operators of CloudStack
Who would like to have
who would like to run CI, because who are also making changes. Remember, we're a heavily user-driven community.
You don't think about?
They have, they're not running it on their own tech like you, it's a combination of other people's tech.
Yeah, but it would still be their environment, their configuration.
Yeah,
They
with
want
some
to
crazy stuff going on with authentication, some crazy security stuff. So they want to know that they can run in that environment. So I think there might be more interest than you think.
Running their own custom plugins
Yeah,
against
a lot of people.
other PRs.
So how do we? Because we are new here. How do we bring this?
we've got two former VPs at CloudStack in the room who will now advise you on how you should go about it.
Three.
Three.
It's not in the room.
We go.
We don't, of course.
We don't. You haven't before? Oh, great. We now know who the next one is. That was some trouble zone. Yeah.
So I think, you know, ultimately, that decision would need to be put out as a proposal on the mailing list. Now, it's not saying that doing this, getting some people working on some ideas and going with a proposal in mind of how it will fit together after speaking wouldn't be a smart thing to do first.
So, do we need to? Do you think we should just write the proposal in terms of this? This is like the far future we imagine, and this is just the first step we want to take towards that.
Well, the first bit is a mail to the mailing list, and the second bit is just a PR.
Okay.
Just send it in, and yeah.
And keep it simple to
Makes sense.
start with. Yeah.
that's-
Keep it real simple to start with. Just get broad approval first, and then you can get into the detail.
Yeah.
When you've got
Right.
the way you want to go, the first question then is, oh, we want to get our app that does this.
Yeah.
Please can we have it? Please can someone
Yeah.
sign off? You
Yeah.
don't need to have a whole plan for it, just
Yeah.
the bit you need to hook into,
Yeah.
then see what you can do.
Okay.
As long as you don't then spam every PR with 1,000 lines, then no one's going to care.
So we need a what is it called?
The kit of action, that doesn't really matter. It's all in.
Well, I think in return draft.
Okay, makes sense. Good. Is there any comments?
No, thanks for the feedback. That's what we were here for. Getting this through you and carrying on to the mailing list with the next iteration of what we got us. So thanks.
Great.
Any more questions, boys?
That's cool. Success.
Thanks, guys.